Ever get that feeling? Like time is just slipping away. 1 minute it's January, and then bam, it's the holidays again.
It really does feel that way sometimes, doesn't it?
We're tackling that feeling head on today in our deep dive.
Looking into why time seems to speed up the older we get.
We're diving into an article from Rich Woman magazine called Feeling Good and Happy Every Day, The Science of Time Perception.
So intriguing.
It is. It's by Dr. Marina Nani, and she blends biology and psychology.
Interesting combo.
So it's not just us. It's
Yeah.
not just in our heads. There's a real reason.
You're right, it's not just you. The article highlights some fascinating research. One of the leading researchers is Duke University professor Adrian Bejan.
Okay, Professor, what did you find?
Well, he uses this really interesting analogy.
Okay, I love analogies. Lay it on me.
He compares the way our brains process what we see to a flip book.
Flip book, okay, I'm visualizing.
He says younger brains process more visual frames per second.
More frames per second, like a high-definition movie.
Exactly. So each second feels packed with information, making time feel expansive.
Okay, so as we get older, our brains are processing fewer frames per second.
Precisely.
So like an old film reel, instead of that crisp HD experience.
A perfect way to put it.
Makes sense, but is
Yeah.
it just what we see? The article also mentioned something about new experiences.
You're picking up on a key point. Dr. Nani explains that children's brains are flooded with new experiences all the time.
Everything is new for them when you're a kid.
And that leads to really strong and vivid memories. Their brains are basically creating these detailed snapshots constantly.
Making their sense of time huge and expansive.
Exactly. Now contrast that with adults.
We're stuck in routines most of the time.
Right. Fewer new experiences equals fewer distinct memories, and time feels compressed.
Yeah, a week-long vacation as a kid felt like forever. Now, poof, it's gone.
The article even quotes Dr. Nani on this.
Oh, really? Let's hear it.
She says, adults burdened by responsibilities and to-do lists often operate on autopilot, rushing from one task to another. In this state, time slips through our fingers unnoticed.
Wow, that hits hard. It's true, though, isn't it? Always rushing, always thinking about the next thing.
It's the reality for a lot of us.
But couldn't routine be good in some ways? I mean, routine can be comforting, can't it? Maybe even make time feel a little slower, less frantic.
That's an interesting point. Routine can definitely offer comfort and structure, and it does help manage the chaos of life.
But if we're talking about time perception,
I think the key is balance. Think about it. If every single day is identical, our brains might start treating them as one big blur.
yeah, so no variation, no distinct memories.
Exactly. Dr. Nani's not saying ditch all routine, but maybe strategically add in some novelty.
Okay, so shake things up a bit, give our brains something new to process.
Precisely.
So we've talked about our brains processing what we see and the role of new experiences, but the article also talks about how our perception of a year changes as we get older, right?
That's true. You're right. That's another fascinating aspect. Dr. Nani brings up this phenomenon that to a 10-year-old, a year is 10% of their entire life.
Wow, 10%. That's huge. No wonder summer break felt like it lasted forever.
But for someone who's 50, that same year is only 2% of their life.
So a year literally feels shorter the older you get.
It's not just the math. There's also a psychological component.
What do you mean?
Well, Dr. Nani points out that kids are very present-focused, living in the now.
That's so true. They're just immersed in whatever they're doing.
While adults are often future-oriented, always planning, always worrying about what's next.
Always thinking 5 steps ahead.
So we're so busy thinking about what's coming that we miss what's happening right now.
Missing the scenery while we're rushing to the destination.
A great analogy.
So is there anything we can do? If time perception is shaped by our biology and our mindset, can we actually slow down time as we get older?
Now that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can we regain that childhood sense of time?
I'm dying to know, does Dr. Nani offer any hope? Or are we stuck on this speeding train watching the years fly by?
Well, here's where things get really interesting. Dr. Nani suggests that we're not powerless in this process.
Okay, there's hope.
She argues that by understanding the science, we can actually take steps to stretch out time, make it feel less fleeting and more expansive.
Okay, I am all ears. Tell me everything. What does she recommend?
Dr. Nani's suggestions kind of build on what we've been talking about. She emphasizes embracing new experiences, breaking routines, and practicing mindfulness.
Okay, those all sound great in theory, but can we really slow down time? I mean, really?
Well, we can't change the clock itself,
Right.
but we can change how our brains process time. Remember how novelty creates those vivid memories.
Yeah, those snapshots.
When we have new experiences, our brains have to work harder to process the unfamiliar information.
So trying new things keeps our brains engaged and somehow stretches out time. I guess I can see how that works for big things like traveling to a new country, but what about smaller changes? Do those really make a difference?
They absolutely do. The key is disrupting those routine neural pathways.
Okay, got it.
Even something small like trying a new restaurant instead of your usual spot.
Or like taking a different route to work.
Exactly. Or picking up a new hobby. Those little things can have a big impact.
Because they force our brains to make new connections.
Exactly. And Dr. Nani explains that this makes time feel less like a blur and more like a series of distinct events.
Interesting. Okay, so novelty is key. But what about mindfulness? I keep hearing about that everywhere. How does that fit into all of this?
Mindfulness is huge. Think about it when we're rushing through our day. Our minds are often focused on the future, on what's next, instead of being present.
And that makes time feel like it's just vanishing?
Exactly. That future-oriented thinking contributes to that feeling of time slipping away.
Always chasing something, never really arriving.
Mindfulness is all about training our minds to be in the present moment without judgment.
Without judgment. Okay.
We're not dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We're just allowing ourselves to experience what's happening right now.
So instead of gulping down my coffee while I'm checking emails, I should actually savor it. Really be in that moment.
Exactly. Dr. Nani suggests that even ordinary things can become more meaningful and engaging when we're mindful.
Because we're actually paying attention.
Right. And when we pay closer attention, our brains create more memories, which can make time feel less rushed.
Makes sense. I've definitely noticed that when I'm stressed, time just flies by. But when I slow down and just breathe, it's like everything changes.
That's the connection between our mental state and our perception of time. When we're stressed, our minds are racing and we're not present.
So time just zooms by.
But when we're calm and focused, we're able to really be in each moment.
Making time feel less fleeting.
It's really remarkable how much our mindset influences our experience of time.
So it's not just our actions, it's our internal approach too.
Exactly. We have a choice in how we experience time. We can choose to rush through life on autopilot, or we can choose to be present and engaged.
So powerful. I love that. It's like mindfulness is the key that unlocks the other things we talked about.
You're getting it. When we break our routines and try new things, we naturally become more mindful.
And the more mindful we are, the more we notice the little things, even in our everyday lives.
Exactly. It's this amazing positive feedback loop.
The more we do it, the better we get at it.
And the more we benefit from it.
I love that. But I'm still having a little trouble with this idea that we can actually slow down time.
Yeah.
It feels almost impossible.
It's understandable to be skeptical, but think about it this way. We're not changing the actual flow of time, but our experience of it.
Okay, that makes sense.
It's about finding that sweet spot where we're not rushing or dwelling on the past or worrying about the future. We're just present and engaged.
Learning to dance with time instead of fighting against it.
I love that analogy.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening. I'm already thinking about how I can incorporate all of this into my life. What about you? What stood out to you most from Dr. Nani's article?
I think the power of perspective really struck me. Time might be constant, but how we experience it is so flexible.
We can't control the clock, but we can control our experience.
And that is incredibly powerful.
It really is. Before we move on, I want to circle back to mindfulness for a minute. We've talked about how it can slow down time by making us more present. But can you elaborate on the actual benefits of mindfulness practices like meditation? How do they really change our relationship with time?
Meditation is like a training ground for our minds. It helps us become more aware of our thoughts, feelings, and sensations, and to observe them without getting carried away.
So it's like working out a muscle.
Exactly. And that ability to just observe without judgment is so valuable when it comes to our experience of time.
Because if we're always caught up in our thoughts, then we're not really present.
Exactly. We're either reliving the past or worrying about the future, and that makes time feel like it's slipping away.
It's like we're not really living, we're just stuck in our heads.
Right. But with mindfulness, we learn to come back to the present moment.
To anchor ourselves in the now.
Exactly. And that's where the magic happens. When we're present, we start to appreciate the richness of each experience.
We notice the details we might have missed.
And we savor those little moments of joy.
Like we're seeing the world through the eyes of a child again.
That's a beautiful way to put it, and it's something we can do at any age.
It's never too late.
Exactly. We all have the ability to be more mindful and to change our relationship with time.
So inspiring. It's like we're being given this key to unlock a whole new way of experiencing life.
And it's a key we can use anytime, anywhere, whether we're meditating, washing the dishes, or just walking down the street.
Finding little pockets of mindfulness throughout the day.
The more you practice, the more natural it becomes.
I love that this is all so helpful. I'm feeling much more equipped to deal with my relationship with time in a more mindful way. Any specific tips for someone who's brand new to all of this?
Sure, there are so many ways to practice mindfulness. It's about finding what works for you. But here are a few simple things you can try.
Okay, let's hear them.
First, try a simple breathing meditation. Find a comfortable seat, close your eyes if you like, and just focus on your breath as you breathe in and out. Notice the rise and fall of your chest, the coolness of the air as you inhale the warmth. As you exhale, if your mind starts to wander gently, bring it back to your breath.
Okay, I can try that. What else?
Another great practice is mindful walking as you walk. Pay attention to the sensations of your feet on the ground, the movement of your legs, the feeling of the air on your skin. Notice the sights, sounds, and smells around you. Really immerse yourself in the experience.
So it's turning an everyday activity into a mindfulness practice.
You can do this with anything. Eating, showering, even waiting in line at the store.
Finding those little opportunities for mindfulness everywhere.
And the more you practice, the more natural it becomes. You'll find yourself being more present throughout your day without even trying.
This is fantastic. I'm already feeling more in control of my time. I like that it's not about being lazy or unproductive. It's about creating a better way of living.
It really is. And as Dr. Nani says, it all starts with awareness. Once we understand how societal pressures affect our relationship with time, we can make better choices for ourselves.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've explored so much. The biology of time perception, the psychology of it, even the impact of societal pressures.
It's been a really interesting conversation.
And the biggest takeaway for me is that we have more power than we think. We may not control the clock, but we control our experience.
And when we understand the science, we can make choices that create a richer, more meaningful life.
Before we wrap up, is there anything else from the article that really stood out to you?
What really stuck with me is this idea that time is a gift.
Time is a gift. I like that.
It's the canvas we use to paint our lives. It's not something to fear, it's something to embrace and cherish.
It changes the whole way we think about time. And as we said, being mindful helps us see time as this precious resource that lets us experience life to the fullest, to connect, to learn, to grow, to create something meaningful.
It reminds us that even though time might be limited, the possibilities are endless.
Well said. And on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the science of time perception. To our listeners, we hope this has made you think about your own relationship with time. What resonated with you? What small changes can you make to have a more mindful and fulfilling experience of time? Remember, even small changes can make a big difference.
Take a moment to pause, breathe, and be present in this moment, because that's where you'll find a richer, more expansive experience of time and a more fulfilling life.
Thank you for joining us. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic.
Yeah.
Until then, may you find joy and meaning in each precious moment. So as we were talking about mindfulness and perspective, something else from the article really stood out to me. Dr. Nani talks about societal pressures.
Oh, yeah, how society makes us feel this time scarcity thing.
Right. It's like we're always being told to do more, achieve more, have more.
That we should be optimizing every second of our lives.
Like if you're not constantly hustling, you're falling behind.
And that pressure can lead to feeling like we're always running out of time, never catching up.
Time poverty.
Exactly. Always rushing, never present.
Like we're stuck on this crazy treadmill, always focused on the next thing.
And it creates this awful cycle. We feel stressed and overwhelmed, which makes time feel even faster.
So it's not just us, it's society too.
Totally. The way we think about time is shaped by all these expectations and norms.
But we don't have to buy into that, right? We can choose to step off the treadmill.
Exactly. We can create a better relationship with time.
By reclaiming our time, doing things that matter to us.
Saying no to things, setting boundaries, making time for ourselves.
It's about making choices that align with our values, instead of just reacting to pressure.
Right. It's not about being lazy. It's about creating a more joyful, sustainable way of living.
And like Dr. Nani says, it starts with awareness, noticing those societal pressures.
Once we see them, we can make different choices.
This deep dive has been amazing. We've learned so much about why time feels like it's speeding up.
Biology, psychology, even societal influences.
And the biggest takeaway for me is that we have so much more control than we think.
We can't control the clock, but we can control our experience.
And understanding the science empowers us to make conscious choices that lead to a richer life.
What about you? What else from Dr. Nani's article really stood out to you?
That idea that time is a gift really resonated with me.
Me too. It's a powerful way to look at it.
It's not something to fear, it's something to cherish. And when we're mindful of our time, we start to see it as this precious resource.
That lets us experience life fully, to connect with others, to learn to grow, to create something meaningful.
It's a beautiful reminder that even though time is limited, the possibilities are endless.
Well said.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the science of time perception. We hope this has given you some food for thought. What resonated with you? What small changes can you make to create a more mindful, fulfilling experience of time? Remember, even small changes can have a big impact.
Take a moment to pause, breathe, and just be present in this moment, because that's where you'll find a richer, more expansive experience of time and a more fulfilling life.
Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next time with another fascinating topic. Until then, may you find joy and meaning in each precious moment.